At 3:45 in the morning on Saturday, March 21st, 2026, Iran's IRGC aerospace force locked on to an Israeli F-16 fighter jet operating over central Iran and fired. Within minutes, the IRGC's public relations department had issued a formal statement confirming the kill. The third enemy fighter jet, they said, belonging to the Zionist regime of the F-16 type, was struck by the advanced air defense systems of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force. 3 weeks into a war where US officials have repeatedly claimed they flattened Iran's air defenses, Iran just shot down another Israeli warplane. And the IRGC is telling the world exactly how they did it. Chinese radar made it possible. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to show you what that claim actually means, who built the systems Iran is using, what happened to the Chinese engineers who were operating those systems when the bombs started falling, and why this single event reshapes the entire picture of what this war has revealed about the future of aerial combat. Before we continue, thanks a lot for tuning in. Your support is what keeps this show going, and I appreciate you watching. Make sure to subscribe and like the video so I can keep bringing you these critical updates. Here is what we actually know about the third shootdown. The IRGC confirmed the interception at 3:45 a.m. local time. The statement was published on SEPA News, the same channel Iran has used to document every wave of Operation True Promise 4, going back to the opening days of this war. The IRGC said their modern air defense systems were responsible. It was framed not as an isolated event, but as part of a cumulative total. Over 200 hostile aircraft, including drones, cruise missiles, tankers, and fighter jets, intercepted and destroyed in the first 3 weeks of this conflict. That number, if accurate, represents a scale of air defense performance that no Western analyst predicted Iran could sustain after the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. Israel's response was characteristically guarded. The IDF acknowledged that an aircraft had been targeted by a surface-to-air missile during a mission over Iran. The Israeli military said the pilot survived through, quote, alertness and professionalism, and that the sortie was completed successfully. They did not confirm the aircraft was shot down. They did not deny it either. That gap between what the IRGC is saying and what Israel is willing to confirm is exactly the kind of information blackout we have seen repeatedly in this war. Israel said the same thing 2 days earlier, when a US F-35 made an emergency landing at a regional American base after being struck over central Iran, the first confirmed hit on a US crewed aircraft since the war began. CENTCOM confirmed the landing and said the pilot was in stable condition. The investigation, they said, is ongoing. Neither government wants to hand the other side a clean propaganda win, so neither government gives a clean answer. Now we need to talk about what changed between the opening days of this war and March 21st. Because the Iran that failed to shoot down a single aircraft on February 28th is not the same Iran that is now claiming its third fighter jet kill 3 weeks later. And the explanation runs directly through Beijing. Before Operation Epic Fury began, Iran publicly displayed Chinese radar systems at a military exhibition in November 2025. The systems on display included the JY-26, advertised by its Chinese manufacturers as capable of detecting fifth-generation stealth aircraft, and the JY-10 Air Defense Command System. Those were the headline items. But the system that defense analysts were watching more closely was the YLC-8B, developed by China's Nanjing Research Institute of Electronics Technology, which is the civilian name for China Electronics Technology Group Corporation's 14th Research Institute. This is not a fringe weapons supplier. The 14th Research Institute, headquartered in Nanjing, Jiangsu Province, is the birthplace of China's entire radar industry. It developed the AESA radar installed on China's Shandong aircraft carrier. It supplied early warning systems to every branch of the Chinese military. When China wants its best radar technology in the hands of an ally, it comes from the 14th Institute. The YLC-8B operates in the UHF band, at lower frequencies than the high-frequency radars that stealth aircraft were designed to defeat. The physics of stealth are built around radar cross-section reduction at microwave frequencies. An F-35 is shaped to scatter and absorb radar energy in the specific frequency range most air defense radars use. But longer wavelength UHF radar creates a different physical interaction with the aircraft's surface. The edges, corners, and joints that are invisible to microwave radar become detectable at low frequency. The YLC-8B was designed precisely to exploit this. Chinese manufacturers claimed a detection range of over 700 kilometers for standard targets and a detection range of more than 350 kilometers specifically for stealth aircraft. More precisely, they stated it could track an aircraft with a radar cross-section of 1 square meter at distances between 270 and 330 kilometers, and could detect platforms like the F-35 Lightning II at ranges exceeding 200 kilometers. In January 2026, roughly 5 weeks before Operation Epic Fury began, there were reports of an unusual surge in Chinese military transport activity over Iran. As many as 16 Chinese military aircraft reportedly arrived inside Iran within a 56-hour window. The transponders on several of those flights were switched off during the transit. Defense analysts assessing that movement concluded it was consistent with a rapid equipment delivery, not a routine logistics rotation. According to Middle East Eye, the delivery included HQ-9B long-range surface-to-air missile systems and associated radar networks. The YLC-8B was specifically named in reporting from multiple defense intelligence channels as part of that transfer package. Iran was reportedly receiving, as one analyst put it, Beijing's most critical military support to date, a radar system explicitly designed to detect what US and Israeli aircraft were relying on stealth to hide. That is the context the IRGC is operating in when it says Chinese radar made the third Israeli shootdown possible. They are not simply bragging. They are telling you the architecture of how they found the aircraft. You find the aircraft with the YLC-8B's long-range, low-frequency detection. You cue the intercept missile battery based on the targeting data. The missile's terminal guidance takes over. The F-16 does not see it coming until it is too late. Now here is where the story gets considerably darker and considerably more complicated for Beijing. Because Chinese radar did not only help Iran shoot down Israeli jets, Chinese radar technicians were inside Iran operating those systems when the bombs fell. And they did not all survive. On March 16, 2026, Canadian-based Chinese democracy activist Sheng Shui published a conversation on X with a source inside China. The source stated that 3 employees from the CETC 14th Research Institute had been killed in Iran during US-Israeli airstrikes targeting Iranian air defense infrastructure. They were reportedly a senior director in his 50s and 2 engineers in their mid-40s. They were there for one specific purpose: technical maintenance on radar equipment designed to detect advanced stealth aircraft. According to the source, Beijing moved immediately to suppress the information. Families of the 3 men were summoned to the CCP's organization department for post-incident handling. Compensation was offered. No official statement came from China's Foreign Ministry, Defense Ministry, or any state media outlet. The 14th Research Institute did not comment. China's government did not comment. But in the days following the reports, profiles of several top Chinese weapons scientists disappeared from the Chinese Academy of Engineering's public website, including radar specialist Wu Manqing, who headed CETC, the parent organization of the 14th Research Institute. No explanation was given for the removals. The silence from Beijing was itself a kind of confirmation. And those 3 engineers may not be the full picture. Reports from additional sources allege that 7 technicians from Chinese drone manufacturer DJI were also killed in US-Israeli strikes on Iran, and that between 300 and 400 Chinese military and technical personnel are now trapped in underground Iranian military bunkers with no communication, their status unknown. Those underground facilities, according to reporting from Global Defense Corps, were hit with precision after what appears to have been a leak of their exact coordinates to Israeli intelligence. What was designed as a hardened shelter for Chinese advisors embedded in Iran's most sensitive military sites became, by the accounts of multiple sources, a casualty zone. None of this has been officially acknowledged. China's embassy in Israel denied supplying Iran with the HQ-9B at all, stating that China never exports weapons to countries engaged in warfare. But the performance record of Chinese systems in this conflict and the presence of Chinese engineers inside Iran operating those systems points in a different direction from the official statement. Most people following this war are watching the missile salvos and the oil prices. In reality, the more consequential story is this. China positioned technical personnel inside Iranian air defense installations and supplied the hardware that is now allowing Iran to locate and target aircraft that were supposed to be invisible. That is not arms sales at a distance. That is on-site integration of a foreign military into an active war against the United States and Israel. And Beijing gains something direct from this arrangement that goes beyond the oil discount it extracts for the weapons, reportedly somewhere between $10 and $15 per barrel of Iranian crude. Every engagement between China's radar systems and US or Israeli aircraft generates real-world performance data that no Chinese military exercise can replicate. How does the YLC-8B perform against actual F-35 electronic warfare systems at operational altitudes? How does the HQ-9B respond to American HARM anti-radiation missiles? What are the exact vulnerabilities in the detection and firing chain when faced with the EA-18G Growler's jamming suite? China is learning the answers to all of those questions in real time on someone else's battlefield at no direct cost to Chinese personnel, at least not officially. The US Navy's EA-18G Growlers, flying from the carrier Abraham Lincoln, reportedly destroyed 4 YLC-8B radars and 3 HQ-9B missile battery fire control radars in the opening hour of Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. That is how Iran's air defenses were, as Defense Secretary Hegseth put it, flattened in the opening strike. US electronic warfare aircraft specifically targeted the Chinese-supplied detection systems first, because those systems were the foundation of Iran's ability to see incoming aircraft. Blind the radar, and every missile battery behind it is just an expensive piece of metal with nothing to shoot at. But here is the part that official briefings skip over. Destroying radar systems in the opening wave of a campaign is not the same as eliminating them permanently. The YLC-8B is vehicle-mounted and reportedly deployable in under 30 minutes. Iran did not put all of its Chinese-supplied radar on fixed positions waiting to be struck. They distributed them. They hid them. They moved them. The same engineering logic that made the Khaybar-Shikan ballistic missile lethal, a solid-fuel rocket on a truck chassis that looks like a cargo vehicle, applies equally to Iran's air defense radar. You cannot destroy what you cannot find. You cannot find what is driving down a highway. So when the US announced that Iran's air defenses had been flattened, and then 2 weeks later, a US F-35 made an emergency landing after being struck over Iran, and then 48 hours after that, an Israeli F-16 was shot down over central Iran, what you are witnessing is the gap between what a suppression campaign can achieve in week 1 and what the surviving, dispersed, mobile remnant of a Chinese-supplied radar network can still do in week 3. The broader aviation record in this war reflects the same pattern. Wikipedia's running list of confirmed shootdowns and accidents during the 2026 Iran war documents the scope. 9 US MQ-9 Reaper drones have been confirmed shot down by Iranian fire. An Israeli IAI Heron drone was downed in Markazi province. Multiple Elbit Hermes 900 surveillance drones were destroyed. And now 3 Israeli fighter jets claimed by the IRGC, the first 2 preceding the March 21st incident, with Israel's public responses following the same playbook each time. Acknowledge targeting, dispute destruction, withhold details. The Times of Israel published a report noting that the Israeli Air Force investigated the incident where a jet was targeted and said it was, quote, close to being hit, before clarifying the pilot's professionalism prevented the loss. But the IRGC statement from March 21st uses different and more definitive language than those prior incidents. This was a third dedicated shoot-down claim, not a near-miss framing. And the IRGC specifically linked the kill to its modern air defense systems, which is the language Iran has consistently used when referencing Chinese-supplied hardware rather than its domestically produced systems. Now step back and look at what the sequence tells you. Iran entered this war having watched its air defenses catastrophically fail on day one. The Chinese radar systems that were supposed to detect incoming US stealth aircraft were destroyed in the opening hour. The engineers operating them were killed or cut off. Every fixed air defense installation Iran had was struck within the first few days of the campaign. And yet here we are in week 3, with a US F-35 making an emergency landing and a third Israeli fighter jet claimed as a kill. That is not a broken air defense network. That is an air defense network that is adapting. The Taiwanese political commentator Jan Ling-yu wrote in the aftermath of the opening strikes that Iran's Chinese-supplied systems were a patchwork that might function during exercises but collapses once it encounters the complex electronic warfare environment of the US military. That assessment was accurate for day 1. It may no longer be accurate for day 22. Because what the surviving, dispersed elements of Iran's air defense are doing now is not operating as an integrated networked system. They are operating as individual mobile ambush systems, popping up in unexpected locations, firing at aircraft that have been lulled into reduced vigilance by 3 weeks of declared air superiority, and disappearing before the next strike wave arrives. The F-35's Distributed Aperture System, the DAS, is designed to provide 360-degree situational awareness and missile approach warning. But analysis published by defense journalist Sebastian Roblin at 1945 notes that the IRGC footage of the March 19th F-35 strike appears to show the aircraft continuing to fly for several seconds after impact with no defensive maneuver, which suggests the warning system either failed to trigger or triggered too late. The system used may have been an electro-optical or infrared-guided missile, a passive seeker that does not emit radar energy and therefore generates no warning signal for radar-based defense systems. Iran has domestically produced short-range systems, including the Majid and Ra'ad-1, that use exactly this approach. And if the Chinese YLC-8B is providing the initial detection cue, while the terminal intercept is handed off to an Iranian passive IR seeker, the entire engagement chain may be invisible to the defending aircraft until the moment of detonation. That combination, Chinese long-range, low-frequency detection, feeding Iranian short-range passive missile terminal guidance, is the most credible technical explanation for what is happening. And it is an explanation that Beijing helped engineer, on its own citizens, on Iran's behalf, inside an active war against 2 of the most capable air forces on Earth. The geopolitical consequences of this are not limited to this war. China has now demonstrated to every military watching that its radar systems can survive the opening electronic warfare assault of a US campaign, disperse and continue generating actionable targeting data weeks into a conflict. That lesson is being absorbed by every US adversary planning for a future confrontation. And it is being absorbed by every US ally whose deterrence assumptions rest on stealth aircraft penetrating defended airspace without detection. 19 days in, with the third Israeli fighter jet confirmed as a target, and the world watching whether Israel or the IRGC's account is accurate, neither government has given the public a clean picture. One side sealed the crash site, the other published a statement. The satellite imagery over the claimed impact area is, in all likelihood, being watched by intelligence agencies on every continent right now. What is not in dispute is the engineering reality. Iran acquired Chinese radar. Chinese engineers operated that radar inside Iran. American strikes killed some of those engineers, and Iran is still, on day 22, using the surviving elements of that Chinese-supplied detection architecture to find and shoot at Israeli aircraft over central Iran in the middle of the night. That is not a war where one side has been decisively degraded. That is a war where the degraded side rebuilt faster than the degrading side expected, using hardware supplied by a third party that has no official role in the conflict and has issued no statement acknowledging its people died in it. Share this with everyone you know who thinks this is just a regional air campaign. It is not. The engineers in the radar vans are Chinese, the missile guidance is Iranian, the target is Israeli, and the data from every engagement goes straight to Beijing. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Do you believe China is a shadow participant in this war? And who do you think is winning the battle for the skies? Let me know. If you want to stay updated as this war evolves, subscribe and like the video. There is a lot more coming. I will see you soon.